Biden's peddling. And according to these leaked reports, it doesn't seem like the probe is going to go there or has evidence. Quick thought.
When you talk about what the media's involvement in all of this is, how they are purporting to put out this story, or through which lens they like to look at it, whether it's Hunter Biden and a gun charge or any connection, if they could find a gossamer thread to Joe Biden, you can't discuss it without saying that the media to this day is still working to wipe all the egg off its face from having dismissed the original Hunter Biden laptop story as fake and as Russian propaganda. There is this story, and I could have missed it. I'm glad you pointed out that both, a couple of networks did interview the Washington Post reporter, but I didn't see anything today on any of the other bigger networks. I did see an article yesterday in the New York Post, which broke the story originally, and they interviewed a George Washington professor who says that talks about the gun charge. That look, there are millions of gun owners in this country, some of them who have been addicted to drugs. Rarely is this charge pursued.
Well,
so we'll have to watch it and see.
Right. You're right about the egg. It's a whole omelet. Liz Clayman, Guy Benson, thanks very much. Up next, Donald Trump is suing CNN. We'll take a closer look. And later, Elon Musk caves emphasis to buy Twitter after all.
Wednesday, while he's there, he does plan to designate a new national monument. It's an old World War II trading site high up in the Rocky Mountains. That had been a top priority for the incumbent Democrat there, Michael Bennet. He is in a tight re-election battle, and so certainly the president does want to boost his Democratic colleague there. From there, the president will head to Southern California. Of course, Los Angeles is always a ripe fundraising ground for Democrats, and I'm told by sources that the president will raise money for House Democrats on the west side of Los Angeles. And then the president will head to Oregon. There's a tight governor's race there, and certainly the president will want to boost the Democratic candidate. Now, the White House, all of these stops, the president will talk about the infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, but as you mentioned, gas prices are also ticking up, particularly in the West, where some oil refineries have gone offline for maintenance. So that will certainly be something that will be looming over all of this. White House aides say they do expect the president to ramp up his travel in the weeks before the midterm elections.
All right, midterms just barely 30 days away. All right, thank you so much. Busy week ahead. Kevin Liptak. All right, meantime, in Arizona, incumbent Democratic Senator Mark Kelly holds a narrow lead over his Republican challenger, Blake Masters, according to a new CNN poll out this week. The two faced off this week in their one-on-one and only debate. CNN's Kyung Law has more.
Arizona Senator Mark Kelly arrived to the one and only scheduled debate for U.S. Senate. Yes, sir. The Democrat facing off with challenger Blake Masters. The Republican hopes to flip the state red by tying Kelly to President Biden, especially on the economy.
Joe Biden is spending like a drunken sailor, and at every single opportunity, Mark Kelly just says yes.
Kelly defended his record by distancing himself from the president.
I've been strong on border security, and I've stood up to Democrats when they're wrong on this issue.
It sounds
including, by the way, including the president. You know, when the president decided he was going to do something dumb on this and change the rules, that would create a bigger crisis, I told him he was wrong.
The incumbent on defense, from the economy to immigration.
Have you done everything in your power to secure our southern border? I've been focused on the border since day one.
Okay.
We have no great effects because we have a wide open southern border. So if that's the best you can do, I respectfully request you resign and let's get someone in the seat who will actually secure our border. Washington, D.C. has failed on this issue of border security and immigration for decades.
This debate highlights how tight the Arizona Senate race remains. 1/3 of voters in this battleground are independents, why Kelly highlights his bipartisan image.
Thank you.
And Masters morphs to the middle. This was an ad he ran in the Republican primary.
I think Trump won in 2020.
But Masters now?
Yeah, I haven't seen evidence of that.
The Republican dodged answering why his website scrubbed extreme abortion language after he won the primary. Choice, a key issue in Arizona, now that abortion is essentially illegal, except when the mother's life is in danger.
This is code for throwing women into jail. I think we all know guys like this. Guys that think they know better than everyone about everything. You think you know better than women and doctors about abortion. You think you know better than veterans about how to win a war. Folks, we all know guys like this. I think states should decide, but I believe in a federal backstop.
The latest CNN poll shows Senator Kelly ahead of Masters by 6 percentage points. Still a very close race here in Arizona, with early vote starting in just 1 week. Kyung Wah, CNN, Phoenix.
All right, let's talk again now with David Swerdlick. Let's talk about this midterm election. He is a CNN political commentator and a senior staff editor for the New York Times Opinion. David, so good to see you. Oh my gosh, if that does not exemplify how contentious and tight so many of these races are, particularly there in Arizona. And the same goes for the governor's race, not just the U.S. Senate seat there in Arizona. Last night, in fact, Republican candidate Kari Lake, an election denier, was at the center of even more drama and controversy as she had to be removed from the front row of a town hall event in which her opponent was set to take the stage. This after both sides had agreed to hold back-to-back town halls while the other candidate remained backstage. So, oh my gosh, David, I mean, is this where we are now?
Good morning, Fred. Yeah, Arizona is one to watch both in that Senate race and the governor's race. Senator Kelly is up by 4 if you look at the polling averages, but I think that's too close to call for Democrats.
Like, no, my
Senator
gosh.
Kelly does, like that clip you played, have to diverge from the White House on the issue of border security. I don't think he's done a good job of touting the positive aspects of the president's record and the Democrats' record over this past Congress, and that may wind up hurting him. We will just have to see. In the governor's race, the Real Clear Politics average has Lake, the Republican election denier, up by 1. That's too close to call. There's no way to know who's going to win this. This incident at the town hall where Lake, contrary to the agreement, went and sat in the audience while her opponent Dobbs was speaking, I think is a stunt, but it might be an effective stunt. It's a stunt to underscore the fact that Dobbs has not wanted to debate her. It's breaking the rules. That will hurt Lake in the eyes of some voters, but it will also help her in the eyes of some voters if they feel like Dobbs is being too passive. So we're just going to have to see what happens.
An attempt at intimidation there, or just downright disrespect?
Well, it's certainly disrespectful to break these rules. It's certainly taking a page out of that pugilistic Trump playbook where you sort of stick a finger in your opponent's sternum and act tough on the other, proverbially, I should say. But at the same time, I do think that for Lake, it's a gamble meant to emphasize that there won't be a debate, and she wants voters to think, hey, Dobbs won't debate me. Why is that? But we'll see what happens. I'm not making a prediction on this one on election.
Okay, lots at stake these midterm elections, whether it's gubernatorial, Senate races. That's exactly why President Biden will be heading out west to campaign this week with just under now 30 days to go. One stop will be in Colorado, where a critical Senate race is underway. And instead of holding a rally, he plans to designate a new national monument. So what do you make of this rather unconventional, a double-pronged kind of campaign choice and stop?
Fred, this seems more like insurance to me. Senator Bennett has an 8-point lead right now over the challenger, O'Day. Coloradans know him. He's a Democrat who is seen as a moderate, not as someone who's far left, so he's hard to attack on that front. And President Biden is going there to commemorate Camp Hale as a national monument. This was a World War II training ground, so it sort of emphasizes the patriotic nature of President Biden's agenda. It emphasizes that Senator Bennett was one of the people pushing for this, and it helps put the focus on the Colorado race, which has not gotten a lot of national attention. But you also have a situation in this race, even though Senator Bennett has a comfortable lead, that where O'Day, the challenger, is not a full-blown Trumper. He is not an election denier. He is actually pro-choice. And so we're going to see exactly what formula here works for a Republican challenger. If somehow O'Day upsets in this race, I think you're going to see Republicans looking at that formula, something like the Glenn Youngkin formula in Virginia, and figuring out if that's a winning combo going into 2024.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about Georgia's race for the U.S. Senate, which has become, I don't know, even more interesting or intriguing or something, with reports that Republican candidate Herschel Walker, paid a woman to have an abortion and allegedly also asked her to end a second pregnancy 2 years later. He is denying the allegations, but for a candidate who has campaigned on a national abortion ban, this controversy is taking center stage in the race. And this week, Senator Rick Scott plans to come to Georgia from Florida to campaign for Walker. So, at this point, does Walker even need a Donald Trump? I mean, Donald Trump is why he's in the race in the first place. Does Trump, or do you even see that Trump will be coming to Georgia to rally for a Herschel Walker?
Hard to say, Fred. On the one hand, President Trump is keenly aware that some Republicans quietly, or not so quietly, blame him in 2020 for Democrats winning both Senate races, tying the Senate and tipping the Senate balance of power with Vice President Harris's vote to Democrats. That might motivate him at the 11th hour to go in there and campaign for Walker and maybe drive up Republican turnout. On the other hand, former President Trump is, if nothing, cagey. If it looks like these scandals are going to bring Herschel Walker down, and it's not clear quite yet if they're going to bring him down, Warnock has a little bit of a lead, but not a commanding lead in this race, you might see former President Trump back away, not withdraw his support from Walker, but also not expose himself to the idea that he may have put his thumb on the scale in a losing cause. At the end of the day, we know that President Trump is about President Trump and President Trump alone. So these two candidates go into a debate this week in Georgia, where you are, and we'll just see what Georgia voters, think of what they say. Warnock would probably be wise to let Walker's scandals speak for themselves and not attack him that ferociously on that. Walker, a political neophyte, we'll see how he responds.
Yeah, a lot of wait and see. All right, only a few days away. All right, David Swerdlick, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, still ahead, for the first time since Hurricane Ian, residents of Fort Myers Beach are finally being allowed to return and see the damage for themselves to their property. We're live. Next.
A problem before he bid. So I think put all that together, he was going to face some, legitimate risks on his reputation, Tesla stock, because that's tied to his reputation, and he probably would have been forced to pay a huge amount of money or buy it outright by this judge who does not take any prisoners.
But just briefly, you write in the New York Post that you're skeptical that this may go through in the end. You're kind of a pretty strong Elon Musk skeptic at this point.
Well, from a business standpoint, and I think one of the problems with the media coverage on this, Howie, is that he didn't receive this immense amount of criticism until he showed his true colors as an anti-progressive. And I think that's the best way to frame his politics. When he started talking about anti-wokeism, people like me, business reporters, have been covering Elon forever. We've been, writing positive and negative stuff about his various stuff that's in my column today. But when you saw the real attacks on him, they became political. And I think that's one of the problems with media coverage of this. It's like two warring camps. And now on my Twitter feed, it's sort of spilled out to the general public. People saying, oh, you're attacking Elon just like you attacked Donald Trump. Yeah. You didn't like Trump. Now you don't like. Actually, I do like Donald Trump a lot as a person. I know him for years. I don't always attack him. I pick my battles, take my shots, but I call it pretty fair.
Well, speaking of Trump,
the same way.
Let me jump in. Yeah. So speaking of Trump, assuming Elon takes over, he comes back on Twitter. That could be a big deal. And some journalists are saying, all the conservative culture warriors who abandoned the platform, they would come back. And I say, so what? Why shouldn't they have a voice?
Of course. I mean, this is so absurd. I mean, if you notice how Twitter went after Alex Berenson, who, by the way, I've known for many years, a former New York Times reporter, not exactly a right-wing conservative, because he was a vaccine skeptic. They took him out. And I think that's one of the problems with Twitter. And I think what I don't understand about the left these days is that, traditionally when I grew up, when I went to journalism school, most of my journalism professors were liberal. They were free speech advocates. The left today is a totalitarian, gatekeeper in so many ways. And I think that's the problem with the way Twitter's been run. Jack Dorsey all but admits it, one of the founders and the former CEO. And I think that's what Elon wants. That's the positive what Elon wants to bring to it.
And on that point,
open dialogue.
And on that point, some journalists are renewing the attacks they made on Musk last spring when he first, emerged as the buyer of Twitter. When they trashed him, they dug up dirt on him. Most journalists want more content moderation, more regulation, and the right has now basically embraced Elon Musk. What explains the media animosity? It's not like Twitter hasn't been a cesspool for a lot of this stuff under the current management.
Yes. Right. I mean, cesspool forget about free speech, about lots of bad stuff. Isn't even about free speech, which we can put that aside. Elon wants to deal with that by verifying accounts, by the way, which is a good thing, I think. Listen, the media has gone through a fundamental shift in the last, I would say, 10 years. This is not the liberal media bias that people used to talk about in the past, the conservatives used to moan about. This is a progressive wokeism. It's a catechism of progressive thought that it's all about control, what's good and bad, and what they deem is good and bad. And it takes its cues from politicians in Washington, the people that the media is supposed to be calling to the carpet. And I don't know how you change that other than have social media open to everybody. And I think that's the positive thing that Elon wants to do. The negative thing, I followed his business career. I mean, talk about alternative facts, and that's all played out here. This is a guy that doesn't, he resembles Trump in a lot of these ways, the way, the statements he makes.
Also built some very successful companies, Tesla, SpaceX. All right, I got half a minute here. So let's say he takes over, cleans house, given the clashes with management. Some of Twitter's left-leaning employees say they may quit. Does that pose a problem?
No. He'll find other programmers. He'll pay them. I mean, he may have to lay them off because Twitter's business model. What people forget, the thing I called it a dog with fleas. It's a dog with a lot of fleas. He's paying $44 billion for something that he's probably paying $40 billion more than what it's really worth. I mean, keep that in mind here when you look at the balance sheet of Twitter.
For that amount of money, he better get rid of the fleas. Also says he wants to turn Twitter into the everything app called X, which does your dry cleaning and your car washes and everything else. We'll see about that. Charlie, always good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Howie.
After the break, what's more important in the Herschel Walker controversy? A candidate's personal conduct or winning the next election? Stay with us.
Just 7 months before all of this happened. And I want to show you exactly what happened that night at McDonald's instead of telling you, but this video is graphic.
Get out of the car.
Shot fired! Shot fired! Shot fired!
Now, look, he was at that McDonald's for something completely unrelated. He called for backup, but instead of waiting for that backup, he approached that car, and you can see the teenager. He was, of course, startled. You could see the yellow wrapper, possibly a cheeseburger, as he was just trying to figure out exactly what was happening. He drives backwards, and that's when that police officer shoots 5 times. Then when the car is driving away, 5 more times. That teen, as you mentioned, in critical condition. The attorney saying that they're literally waiting, and he is fighting for his life. He is saying that they need all the blessings they can get, and they're focused on bringing him back home. This happened a week ago, and he was facing charges, this teenager. That has been dropped, but of course, still a lot of questions as to why this officer did this, Fred.
So, Camila, you had mentioned that the officer had called for backup. Instead of waiting for backup, then he took matters in his own hands and fired shots. But calling backup for what? Have police revealed what the officer alleges happened as to why calling for backup and why opening the door and proceeding?
Well, look, I watched the body cam video a couple of times, and you can hear the body cam video when he says, this is a car that I saw a couple of days ago, and he fled from me. So what the officer was saying is that this car that he saw had already evaded him a couple of days before, and that's why he says he needed to stop or try to figure out who this teenager was or who was in the car, because he had said that the car had evaded him previously. But then we don't know exactly if it's the same car or if it's the same person. We are waiting for police to give us those details, but that's what he says started everything, Fred.
Okay, Camila Bernal, thank you so much. All right, for the first time since Hurricane Ian made landfall, residents and business owners in Fort Myers Beach are being allowed to return today to see the damage for themselves. CNN's Nadia Romero is live for us in Fort Myers. So Nadia, this is a very difficult journey for so many. What is being said?
Yeah, Fred, one of the bright spots was literally turning the lights back on just yesterday. The neighbors say they finally got electricity more than 10 days after the storm hit. The biggest issue in this neighborhood, storm surge that came in so quickly and filled their homes. And as you walk, you can see right down the street, everything that people have had to pull out of their homes. And it is just hard to imagine until you are able to really see what we would may call debris or damage, but these are people's belongings. This is the carpet, this is the walls, and this is the furniture. These are their books, their sheets, their bedding, things that make their house a home. They've had to gut their homes, and now they're all lined up along this street. These are things that are waiting to get picked up, and that's part of this process as you try to clean up. You're trying to figure out, what do I do first, second, third? I have to remove everything out of my home because mold is starting to grow and accumulate on everything. And you can see it on this mattress and on some of the furniture, some of the mold that is coming into all of these different areas. This is what makes it so unlivable and unsafe. You can't breathe this in. But there are so many items that people are trying to hold on to because it meant something to them. We spoke with a man who had a vintage Volvo that he had been working on. Well, that was taken through the storm, through that storm surge. That has been permanently damaged. And so many people in this neighborhood were not able to get insurance. One man told me he had insurance, and then that insurance company dropped the state of Florida altogether. So now they're trying to figure out if they can get help from FEMA or other areas of assistance. But the cleanup process, this is going to take quite some time, Fred. We're in Fort Myers Beach, not far from here. Finally, people are being able to come back, take a look at the damage there. But there is still a curfew for so many areas because of concerns of looting. Fred?
Yeah, and then Nadia, I mean, those are big things. So how do people actually get those big things, waterlogged, heavy things out of their home? I mean, are they getting a lot of help?
Yeah, there's some help from people who've come down to just lend a helping hand. So you have some homes like this one next to me where you can see they've had some roof damage, but they fared fairly well compared to other people, right? And so people in the neighborhood who feel like, you know, we didn't get hit that badly, we're going to go help our neighbors. And then we have people who are snowbirds here, so they came down to address their property issues, and they brought family members and friends. I spoke with one man who says, I should be at a weightlifting competition, but I'm here helping my buddy out because that's more important. At this point, though, they haven't seen a lot of help from some of those government agencies. And so people are asking the question, what do I do now? I wasn't able to get flood insurance. I had regular insurance, but that storm surge is considered flooding. So that doesn't cover some of their damages. So they're having to come out of pocket and just figure out how to move forward.
Wow, horrible dilemma. All right, thank you so much, Nadia Romero there. All right, now to an incredible moment caught on camera. Two frantic parents in Michigan waved down a school bus driver after their car was stolen with their 2-year-old inside. I mean, panicked. Can you imagine? According to CNN affiliate WXMI, the bus driver called 911, radioed other bus drivers to be on the lookout, and then another bus driver found the toddler outside, not far from where the car was stolen. And you see there wrapping up in a blanket, bringing him in the bus to safety. Thanks to the quick action of the bus drivers, the child was safely returned to his parents. Police still searching for the suspect. Very close call and frightening. All right, breast cancer deaths are falling, but not among all races equally. Why Black women are not surviving the disease as much despite a lower rate of incidence. Next.
I like candidates to focus on like the things that really matter, which is like, you know,
issues that voters care about, right? But I'm going to disagree.
An impact.
I think it has changed. I think that things that would have knocked the candidate out of a race even 5 years ago, Roy Moore, or 10 years ago, are now, you know, everybody says, oh, they don't believe it or it doesn't matter. And Susan, does that suggest, if you buy my premise, that Donald Trump was right when he talked about shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, meaning he would still have support, that a candidate could lie or cheat or, I don't know, rob a bank, as long as his side felt that his election was of paramount importance?
Well, he proved that point in 2016 when he survived the tape that came out with him saying, grab him by the you-know-what. He managed to survive that. That was very serious. Everyone thought it was the end. They dropped him. A lot of Republicans, including the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, saying privately he wouldn't support him anymore. But I just think that it depends on the race, it depends on the candidate, and it depends on the situation. Roy Moore did not win in Alabama, and a Democrat won in that red state because that was sexual misconduct. It depends on what they're accused of, how serious the allegations are, and how good the evidence is. So far, we have this check that Walker signed. He paid for something. He has had problems with his kids. I don't think he's been accused of sexual misconduct, but his former wife accused him of extreme violence, which he's admitted to. Some polls show that could be having some impact. We don't have any post-polling on the abortion issue at this point, but it's the hypocrisy. So in this instance, what I might disagree with you is it's about getting the base out in order to win this very close election. If you can depress that enthusiasm by saying, look at this guy who you think is pro-life and look at what a hypocrite he is, some people might be like, maybe I won't go out and vote. In that case, it still really matters.
All right. And Kristen, look, both parties have a history of minimizing or rationalizing their own candidates' flaws or scandals. I mean, Susan brought up Bill Clinton. Many Democrats denounced his lies and misconduct with Monica Lewinsky, but said he shouldn't be impeached. So is there that? So it's not like this is brand new. I just think it's gotten more partisan.
This is not brand new. This is nothing new. Both parties do it. We both try to look beyond, the flaws of the people that we are trying to get behind. And I think just sometimes it gets to be too much. In this case, I think it is. But yeah, this is nothing new. Both parties do it, and we should look beyond that and elect people who we want to represent us in Congress.
Yeah, real quickly, Susan, I think this is a dilemma for the press because we try to put out the facts, but when each side thinks the other side's election would lead to the end of democracy, you're in a hyper-polarized situation.
Well, in that sense, Howie, the real problem is the uneven media coverage. When it's a Republican scandal, pure saturation. But, it tends to be when it's a Democrat, they play it down, it doesn't get as much attention. There are exceptions to what I'm talking about here. But generally speaking, look at, the Hunter Biden laptop, example number one. And that is really, to me, my biggest concern, how this is covered.
Yeah, I try to make that point at the top about selective scrutiny, shall we say. Susan Fricio, Kristen Hahn, thanks for joining us. Have a great Sunday. Still to come, CNN secretly suspends a conservative commentator. Chris Cuomo talks about his therapist, and Harry and Meghan get a fact checker. The Buzz Beater is next.
Waiting for Oregon. Paid for by friends at Tina Kotek 4792.
Dear Exit Strategy, all your pieces are in place. A tranquil lake.
Oh no, Chris Cuomo and his therapist.
A secret hideout.
Oh my God, everybody, watch out. Watch out for that report.
Toyota SUVs.
Every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care, our no-cost maintenance plan with roadside assistance. Visit your local Toyota dealer to learn more. Reserve yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy. New season premieres tonight at 9.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We offer a free book on mesothelioma. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
A new report from the American Cancer Society shows death rates from breast cancer have dropped significantly over the past 3 decades. And while that's great news, one trend that has not been improving is the disparity. Black women continue to be more likely to die from breast cancer despite having a lower incidence rate. CNN health reporter Jacqueline Howard has more.
There's both good news and concerning news when it comes to breast cancer here in the U.S. On one hand, the American Cancer Society report shows that breast cancer death rates have declined by a significant 43%. That's from the year 1989 to 2020. But then the concerning news is Black women are still more likely than white women to die from breast cancer. They're 40% more likely, even though they have a lower incidence of it. Now, there are several factors as to why this racial disparity exists, but American Cancer Society researcher Rebecca Siegel offered some ideas. Have a listen.
The evidence is consistent that Black women receive short shrift in the healthcare system at every point in the breast cancer care continuum, from lower quality mammography to delays between the time of diagnosis and the beginning of treatment to poor quality treatment when they are diagnosed.
And when it comes to diagnosing breast cancer early, most women choose to start their regular mammogram screenings around age 40. But of course, it is important to talk to your doctor about what's best for you and your own personal breast cancer risks. Back to you.
Jacqueline Howard, thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Before allergy symptoms take over you. And new Allegra Hives works to relieve itching and reduce hives for 24 hours.
When it's go time, I don't let constipation stop me.
New great tasting Dulcolax Chewy Fruit Bites work naturally with the water in your body in as little as 30 minutes. So you can go fast, go gently, and go on with life. New Dulcolax Chewy Fruit Bites put you comfortably in control.
I'm up against the clock on the buzz beater. Let's go. CNN conservative commentator Mary Catherine Ham was taken off the air for 7 months, but no one told her of the secret suspension. In part, she writes, because she just had a baby and management was worried she might be a loose cannon. Seriously? Her sin, says Ham, one-time colleague here at Fox, was that she tweeted critical things about CNN's Jeff Toobin, who was suspended for 8 months for pleasuring himself during a Zoom work call. Jeff Zucker's team felt this violated an informal policy of giving Toobin a breather, which Ham says on Substack she was never told about. So the new CNN chairman, Chris Link, has invited her back on the air. But Mary Catherine says she was treated unfairly and refuses to shut up about it. Good for her. Chris Cuomo just launched his primetime show on News Nation after being fired by CNN for improperly helping his brother Andrew, and says he's a changed man.
I've learned lessons, good and bad, in the past many months. I've relied on my family, my friends, my therapist. I've been humbled by what happened, and I'm also hungry to do better in a way that I've never been before.
Earlier, he was candid about a personal problem.
I drink too much. I'm thinking about that, and mostly in terms of why I drink too much.
Cuomo, who wound up being identified with the Democratic Party of the 2 governors in his family, now says he wants to take on both sides and expose the game of politics. The audience will be the judge of that. Alec Baldwin and producers of Rust have reached a settlement with the family of Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer who was killed a year ago when the gun the actor was holding turned out to have live ammunition. Now, if a court approves, the movie will resume filming with Helena's husband Matthew as executive producer. He says, I have no interest in engaging in recriminations or attribution of blame to the producers or Mr. Baldwin. All of us believe Helena's death was a terrible accident. Baldwin praised the settlement, saying, we are grateful to everyone who contributed to the resolution of this tragic and painful situation. Santa Fe authorities still investigating this terrible incident that clearly involved reckless shortcuts. No on-the-record statements, but the New York Post, followed by People magazine and other outlets, all quoting sources are saying that Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen have hired divorce lawyers, have been living apart, and appear headed toward a split. That's sad, but these are clearly authorized leaks. And Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Spotify podcast is returning, in case you were anxiously awaiting that. But the Daily Mail reports that the company has hired a fact checker. Why? Since it's just the semi-excommunicated royal couple talking. Seems Markle has told some stories that were either exaggerated or untrue. One about a fire in her son's room in South Africa that the palace says was just smoke from a heater. Another about a conversation with a performer who says he never met Meghan. Looks like Spotify is trying to save her from herself. We've got it all in. That's it for this edition of Media Buzz. I'm Howard Kurtz. Hey, the media are hailing Aaron Judge of the Yankees for hitting 62 home runs, breaking the call right now.
Call now. Relaxium Sleep is giving away 1,000 bottles. Call and get your very own risk-free bottle of Relaxium Sleep now. Call 800-457-6099. 800-457-6099. The Murdoch's Empire of Influence. Tonight, only on CNN.
Bubbles. Bubbles. So many bubbles. As an Expedia member, you earn points on your travels. And that's on top of your airline miles. So you can go and see, or taste, or do absolutely nothing with all those bubbles. Without ever wondering if you're getting the most out of your trip. Because you are.
Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy, is brought to you by Expedia. Go to CNN.com/searching for Italy to learn more about Tucci's life-changing travels and get sought-after recipes from all over Italy.
Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy, is back in this new season. Stanley takes you all to new regions for more delicious food, more fun, and of course, more amazing adventures.
He starts things off with a sofrito of garlic and sweet tropea onion.
Mia mamma mi ha imparato sempre di mettere l'aglio intero, così a chi non piace poi lo puoi togliere. Pomodorini.
Olive.
Olive always.
I'd like to have a shirt made out of this.
E adesso il sugo, passata di pomodoro fresco, un pizzico di origano, odore di Calabria. Adesso che è quasi pronto, vediamo di farlo assaggiare, così vi faccio conoscere mia moglie Carolina poi. Così lo mangiamo, andiamo, lo proviamo tutti insieme? Sì.
Oh gosh, that looks so good. The all-new season of the Emmy Award-winning Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy, premieres tonight at 9 on CNN. All right, perhaps you're hungry for some pumpkin flavor. Well, an Illinois man is carving out a place in the history books. It's all about the big pumpkin. And this isn't your average pumpkin. Nope, not at all. This one weighing in at more than 1,700 pounds. In fact, he's got a whole collection of it all. It's officially the largest one grown in the entire state of Illinois, that one this year. Joe Adkins, the man behind the giant gourd, says it grew at a rate of about 40 pounds per day and needed 150 gallons of water every 24 hours for 3 months. How does one do that? Well, his labor of love certainly paid off, and his front yard has turned in quite the potpourri. It is quite the fall attraction. Sounds to me like the makings of a whole lot of pumpkin pie for neighbors, just in time for Thanksgiving. I'm Frederica Whitfield in Atlanta. Thanks so much for joining me. Coming up right here on CNN.
Pumpkin pie. You know,
Youngkin of Virginia.
Sounds good.
Senator Chris Murphy, and a CNN exclusive with former governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson. State of the Union starting right now.
Bye.